But for the most part with these at the beginning here, the ones that I've starred or the ones I'm planning on doing, if we get to the end and there's either a couple you still want me to do or to check on something, that would be cool. Good morning. Grab one of those packets off the back table there. We're playing with the quiz preview. And so just a couple of reminders mainly we're going to put down with these as we work through. So again, if you want to go at your own pace, go at your own pace. If you want to jump in and kind of get some hints on a few things with me, that's cool too. All right, I'm jumping down to 4. Order from least to greatest. I got me a decimal, and I got a couple of mixed numbers here. So if you know right off the top what any of those are, nice, and congratulations, you've got that. Otherwise, here's a hint. When you get to the fractional parts, if you just type in the fraction, and again, we're just using the divide button on these, that would let me transform some of these into their decimal equivalents. And so that may, bless you, that may help some. But if it doesn't, you're still like, well, I know that's the biggest one because 8's bigger than 7 is, so that'll go last. But then I'm not sure here. You always can make sure that we're comparing the same things by having the same number of decimal points. So if they all have 2 decimal points, now it's a little bit easier to play with because 370 is less than 375, which is less than 380. So I can now put these, and I don't even care if you put them in decimal mode like this, if you've changed them. Otherwise, I'm going to put below there what they are in their other format. So either of those, perfectly okay when you're trying to do your ordering. Having a number line helps, that's cool. Other things can help us there as well. On the evaluate part, now I can do most of this on my calculator. Remember, if you're not going to do this on your calculator, doing order of operations is helpful, but the reason I chose number 6 is because when that big old bar is in there, and I think we talked about this a little earlier, if you're going to the calculator, even if you're not, I want to do the top by itself, the numerator. I want to do the denominator by itself. So if you're just doing it off the top of your head, you're going to want to be cautious because you can't just go from left to right. Because here, multiply comes before subtract does. If I do it that way, 14 minus 2 would be 12 times 4 would be 48. It's a lot different than 6. 1 times 3 we can handle. And then we can get the answer. Because if I try to just type all this in, and I'm just looking at it, I'm like, all right, 14 minus 2 times 4 divided by 1 times 3. I get something a whole lot different because the calculator doesn't know if that big bar is there. It's going to do that like it's just division with the 4 divided by 1. We don't want that. So do it in pieces if you see the big bar. Evaluating here. Hint coming from someone who has dealt with this a time or two. If you use parentheses when you're doing this stuff, you're going to stay out of a lot of trouble, especially if you're going to the calculator. Let me show you why. So this x squared that's here, okay, that squared's on the outside. So it kind of looks like this if I do it the right way. And I'll show you what happens too if it doesn't go quite so well with that. So if I'm not careful, if I don't do the parentheses, so let's say I just do negative 3 squared times 7. Uh-oh. Close. Close. But by not putting it in the parentheses, my calculator is doing 3 to the second power, which is 9, then putting the negative on it. So that's why it's just safer whenever you're doing evaluating or you're substituting values in to use parentheses, just in case we end up with a squared portion with those. All right, a little more bopping around here. Like I said, we can always come back to anything. Little of everything. Oh, multiplying and dividing fractions. Okay. Mixed numbers, possible to do on the calculator, but not something we necessarily want to do. So here with this, I'm just going to write my 2 1/8 over here because I want to be able to do this a little easier. My first job is we're going to multiply the denominator by the big number, by our base. And then secondly, we're going to add the number that's on top. So 8 times 2 is 16, plus 1 be 17 over 8 times 2 over 3. And once we've got that, multiplying, I do not need a common denominator. So you can either just multiply across, and then do a little bit, because I think that's a decimal. It is. A little math enter interaction. Or if you are in super techie speedy mode, you can just put your fractions into parentheses. Math, enter, enter, and get to the same place. That's the cool thing with a lot of things we're doing right now. We have lots of options. We just got to see how they're going to work out. And the only reason I wanted to throw a division in here is a reminder. Division, make sure that second fraction, we take its reciprocal, we get it flipped, and then it turns into multiply, and now I got the same options I had here. I'm a traditionalist. I show my age. Instead of going techie, I like to just multiply straight across. And then reduce. They're both divisible by 5. Can I be techie? I can. I'm capable. You can teach this old dog a new trick or two. Still get my 6/7 that way. Blend in a little. Add or subtract fractions when it's not a fraction. Now, could I, let's see here. Could I just do -3 again? Negative, not minus, negative, minus. Minus, negative, 5 over 7. Could I just go to the calculator? I could, but we don't, no, decimals. Bleh. I'm fine if you go that route, okay? Otherwise, you could work on finding a common denominator. You're like, what would my other options be? That's going to be your best one. But if we don't go that way, we do our minus and negative there. If you were going to look for a common denominator, if I'm counting by 1s and 7s, 7's the first number that's going to show up. So that's not going to adjust my second one here at all. But here, if I do a little side work, what do we multiply 1 by to get to 7? We do the same thing to the numerator. And then we just add those up, and I end up at the exact same place. But what I will say is, on the quiz tomorrow, the only thing I don't want to see in the fraction section is decimals. Okay? If you go improper fraction, if you're like, hey, can I put it back into a mixed number, -2 2/7, sure, that's fine. Don't care. Yeah, just stay away from those yucky decimals. Those aren't any fun. So let's see. Talked about those. I want to leave the application for you, but if somebody asks, I'll probably jump back in. Okay. Couple to go, then I'm going to open it up to all you and see where we're at here. Ratios and proportions. The lengths of the sides of a triangle are 3 to 4 to 5. The perimeter is 108. Find all three side lengths. So a side length itself is the mystery value. We got to know what x is before we can find out what all the other ones are. So if I kind of looked at it like this, not necessarily drawn to scale, because I got to have the x's, because if I just did 3 plus 4 plus 5 equals 108, that's not going to make much sense. So, let's see. Okay, but as we have said just a couple of times so far, most of the time we are very content once we get to x that we're done, but we need to find all our side lengths. So for each of these, I'm going to replace the x with 9. And hopefully, and I'm going to double check myself on this, hopefully my three sides, once I substitute in, total up to the 108 that I'm looking for. And if they do, I'm good. I can get that set and get that rolling. And then one quick pop back to yesterday. And we've only got one graph down here for 2, so I put on here. Now, if you have colors, you go for it with colors. That's fine. That's probably be better. But otherwise, we could do a solid line for one and just like a dotted or a dashed line for the other, so we could get them both on the single graph. I want to look at this one for a minute. So here, I'm given the chart. So I've got everything I need for these. But the question is, what's the rule to get from x to y? I think so. Plus 3, plus 3, plus 3, plus 3 it is. So add x by 3 to get y. Not the best English, but that's why I'm a math teacher. Okay. 4, 1, negative 1, 2. 1, 4. And what's always important, do all my dots stay in a straight line? They do. And then on the other one, you've got the rule, so you can find y, and then we make that line. Good. And when you're in here, for the most part, the previews are going to look pretty similar to what the quizzes are going to be, like size-wise, content-wise. I don't do a whole lot of surprises with stuff like that. I just want to get down to the basics on knowing if you're going along okay or not. So take some time.